Welcome once again to the Radical Imagination. I'm your host, Jim Vrettos. I'm a sociologist who's taught at John Jay College and Yeshiva University here in New York City. Our first guest today is a young, energetic community activist and insurgent who's running in the June 28th Democratic primary for the right to represent the East Bronx and the 82nd District of the New York State Assembly. Jonathan Soto is a former Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez campaign aide, has taken positions consistent with the progressive left, and has the blessing of AOC's Courage to Change Political Action Committee and the Working Families Party. He's a public school parent of a 10-year-old daughter, the son of Pentecostal ministers, trained in law and urban planning, who oversaw former Mayor de Blasio's faith-based clergy advisory council programs, where he worked with religious leaders to address homelessness, domestic violence, and immigration issues. He's organized campaigns to provide disaster relief to Puerto Rico, and among numerous other community empowerment projects, managed AOC's campaign Homework Helpers program. Jonathan, it is great to have you on.
It's great to
the
be
show.
here.
We did the homework study program, which was fabulous.
Yeah.
And I noticed your campaign motto: breathe, pray, organize. I was taken to that. What does that mean? What are you trying to get across there?
Thank you. Yeah, that's the title of my campaign video.
Yes. Which we're playing.
Which we're playing. Excellent.
Yes.
In the campaign video, I start with a meditative practice. I think during this period of COVID, we've seen how so much of our economic lives and our civic lives and even our mental lives have been scrambled. We have lost a sense of control. So part of my practice in the morning is I get up, and it's also good for my mental health. I do some exercise. And the video, I'm at the court, and then we fast forward to scenes of climate disaster.
Basketball court, right?
Basketball court.
That's where the video starts with you shooting. Looks like 4:30 in the morning there, and you're making all these shots too.
Hey, it was several attempts, but we only edited the one that went in.
There you go.
But that's actually right next also to the edge of the Trump golf course in Ferry Point Park. So you see the contrast there of right next in the basketball court. We have NYCHA Housing, which is New York City Housing Authority. I live next to NYCHA. And we have then the Trump golf course. So what a juxtaposition to demonstrate the contradictions of the systems we live in. And for us, breathe, pray, organize, for the title of the video, breath is attention. We need to be aware of what's happening. Pray is intention. And then organizing is the collective action we take. What we're fighting for is community control of schools, community control of budgets. In Albany, we saw a really trash budget that is getting passed. And we want community control of our lands, as the Trump golf course demonstrates. 3/4 of my neighborhood's waterfront property given to an insurrectionist. So those are some of the things I'm fighting for.
We're talking about this golf course here. The East Bronx borders, you have waterfront there, and so what? As you're shooting baskets here at 4:30 in the morning, you look out and what do you see? You got this huge golf course. Now, how did this golf course get there? This is Trump's golf course. Your opponent, as I understand, has taken donations from him, and Trump got a big tax break on this. I mean,
that's exactly.
What is that saying about what you're trying to do in your campaign?
It shows that the system works and benefits donors in our community. Big donors, real estate donors, donors from Wall Street, and they're the ones that control the civic possibilities in our community. That happened with the golf course. Trump gave a $6,000 donation to Benedetto, your opponent.
Your opponent,
and Trump got a $127 million tax break. And golf courses are one of the most inefficient uses of land
Yeah. And
from a planning
water and-
perspective.
Absolutely.
Recently, a ferry was opened, and the ferry stop is actually on the side of the golf course, not on the side where the people are, specifically NYCHA residents. So the promise was we'll cut access to the downtown and to the city by half through water transport, yet the people who need the transport don't have it, just people by the golf course. It's so many contradictions. So I think it's a microcosm of what's wrong with the system, that we have a donor class that runs the show, and working people don't have access to good schools, to their land, and to things that are needed in our budget, especially post this pandemic. And Benedetto represents the wrong values. And when I found that out, I decided to make a run.
And he's been doing this for 20 years now. He's had his chance
Yes.
to make a difference in the
Yeah.
community. And you've been a
Yeah.
longtime resident there. Your
Yeah.
daughter goes to school there, and you're established your home there, and you see what's happening, and it's troubling, to put it mildly.
This is very troubling. I'm a public school parent, but at the same time, you mentioned I was organizing during the pandemic. My opponent is the chair of the education committee in the state assembly. So all education policy goes through his committee, and he's the chair. So it's a very large role that was very inefficient, especially during the pandemic. We organized the
Explain
Homework
that.
Helmers
Yeah,
program.
absolutely.
So, for
Yeah.
example, we organized the Homework Helmer program during the pandemic after we had organized parents that said, hey, if we're in this remote condition, why is it that we have no investment in laptops and actual broadband? Because when we talk about access and decisions that people in charge made but didn't let our families in the loop, so many families don't have good Wi-Fi, don't have laptop equipment. So many of them got left behind.
Right.
And there was no consistent advocacy or solutions to support that. So what we did is we made a call to action, and thanks to the Congresswoman for creating the infrastructure for the campaign and the volunteers. We had so many volunteers sign up, and we provided 500 students to this day with free one-on-one homework help virtually. Anyone that wants it gets it. We work with families, provide resources to free internet, access to equipment, and that's something that should be a system-wide thing. There should be homework helpers for all,
Right.
especially during the pandemic. That's done at the local level. So these are kind of solutions that my opponent didn't support. He didn't support a safe remote option for those who wanted it. He didn't support lots of funding that comes to public schools. The foundation aid actually went to charter schools. That's a huge problem. And, he's the chair of the education committee, and he's not using his power to put a stop to injustice, and stays quiet when you needed to speak. So I have a problem with that as someone directly impacted with my daughter in the pandemic. So that's
And
why
so
I'm
many
running.
in your community are facing the same
Yep.
difficulties, and improving the public schools. And then I know you're for free tuition at CUNY as well. So this is a very, very substantial, this would be a very, very substantial shift in people's lives concerning education and education for the kids and so on. How about housing? How about jobs?
Yeah, housing is so
Concrete
critical.
things that really impact on your community up there.
Kitchen table issues, economic issues, and issues of equity and access are so critically important. When we see housing, the tsunami of evictions, the crisis that so much media rang the alarm bell just 2 weeks ago, with the eviction moratoriums ending with so much resources. Think about it. If you're a young person or anybody living in New York City at the beginning of the pandemic, there was a child tax credit, there was a stimulus check, that both of those things expired. With so much student debt that's around and prices are going higher and higher, the Rent Guideline Board, which is the body that the mayor appointed with a bunch of landlords to represent, and they determine what are the rent increases for the preferential and for the rent controlled levels. They justified a 9% increase.
Wow.
A 9% increase. for 2 to 4 year lease renewals. It's devastating to see this, how the system is rigged against the tenant. And the tenant is the worker, and tenants and workers create the wealth in this society. So that's why we're also fighting for good cause eviction, so that people who have deep insecurity around their rent are protected. And this is not to say, I'm a small homeowner as well. I'm a homeowner, right? So I am not saying that we have to have policies that allows us to kick out tenants. No, we need to have a politics of empathy and understanding that during this pandemic, housing is critical, jobs.
Great point.
Super critical. And what we do for jobs is massive climate resilience investments, and then create those green jobs of the future.
Small businesses.
Small businesses.
Tell us a little about the small business concerns in the East Bronx.
So much commercial vacancy happening right now. You see storefronts that are empty. So many of them couldn't withstand the economic chaos of the pandemic. So when we think about small business relief, we have to think about how do we protect them from predatory commercial real estate that will up their rents by 300%, that will, the banks that come in and engage in abusive practices that kick out mom and pops and small business owners that need crucial assistance during this pandemic. So that's one thing. We need to look at commercial rent regulations that protect the tenant, especially during these times of crisis. So many of people I speak to that tell me, I opened up a business at the beginning of the pandemic and we've been able to survive but for the skin of our teeth. Why can't we prioritize their, especially as we're talking about economic recovery here in New York City? Also, we need to provide more access. We have a boom of what is going to be the cannabis industry. I think thinking about the cannabis industry, thinking about making New York City a key manufacturing hub for cannabis in different ways, creating industrial green jobs, a double green. But how do we do it that is done with the lens of racial justice and equity, where people who have been incarcerated, who have been unfairly maligned, by this, there's going to be such an explosion of revenue that's coming in because of cannabis. We need to make sure that small businesses, we talk about what policy are we supporting and who are we supporting. And small business is also about giving access to people who should have access and who have been left out. So those are some of the things, and we need to make sure that we allow for a development that increases worker cooperatives. What do I mean by that? If we're going to develop a ferry location where we have small businesses in that hub, there should be worker cooperatives that are owned by residents, and the state should subsidize those worker cooperatives instead of just giving all that prime real estate space, whether it's where it's going to be the business concession stands in the ferry that was created in my area, right? I want local community members running those concession stands.
Separate and distinct from unions now, or working, how does that, how would that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as of right now, a lot of the development that you see in the city, especially big projects, the concession stands, the access to the small businesses in that immediate area usually goes to donors, right, with franchises. That big box franchise model of development, we need to reimagine that to emphasize what I call worker cooperatives.
Interesting,
in our communities that provide pipelines. And
Richard
training.
Wolff, the economist, talks a lot about that as well.
Yeah.
And I know we're going to do a show in early May with Alex Vitale on that's a whole much larger issue, of which we've touched on a little, but you talked a little about formerly incarcerated and so on, but we're going to have a show that will talk primarily also about the police and the courts and so on. Do you want to say a few words, though, about your support for some of the programs there that have impact on people that are in prison?
Well, I think two things. We talk about public safety, but we should talk about community safety. And the way we do that is with whole communities and safe streets. We can't have safe streets if we don't have whole communities. So we need preventative measures that deal with root causes, which is employment for young people. It's access to mental health services. I believe everyone should have therapy. I deal with mental health situations, myself and my family, everybody's dealing with that.
Yeah.
Why is it that we have free therapy for everyone? You know, these are things that may seem pie in the sky. However, we're then just investing more and more and more enforcement and weapons.
In the carceral state, if we're not going to do that. And people from whatever background should get that.
Absolutely.
You know, this is not just, we're talking about issues that you know, that transform people's lives of whatever ethnic or religious or racial grouping you're talking about. It impacts us all. As you point out, safe streets. That's what we're really talking about, not punishment, which is not going to bring about.
I think, you know, and I draw that perspective deeply because of my formation and my faith. Something that I know we've talked about before in other shows, but you know, those who live by the sword die by the sword, right? So if we have societies that just invest in weapons and swords and surveillance, and with artificial technology, it's easy to see a dystopian future where we're surveilled and weaponized. That's not it. We already have too many weapons, you know, so we need to find ways to emphasize the opposite. How do we emphasize something that's affirmative, which is thinking about a budget of care? And how do we target those investments early, right? We see early intervention, and it's education, really. So education is a process, I think, of liberation. Like when
and
we
mental
think about
health services at an early age, beginning to identify some of the issues that people are going through, young kids are going through, and you well understand that with, you know, I mean, experience of going through with that with your own child and other members of the community in the public schools there. So what are some other issues that really differentiate you from your opponent, do you think?
Yeah, first, I think I don't take, and I think this is a process question, which is really important because a lot of people get distracted by products, and you have to look at process. So in terms of process, I'm not taking money from real estate donors, from big fossil fuel companies. I think that's critically important in terms of why my process of getting elected is different from his. That's the key differentiation. Small donor powered. We also are centering, as mentioned, fighting for good cause, the Excluded Workers Fund. The Excluded Workers Fund is a fund that was passed last year for people who don't have documentation, our neighbors.
The immigrants.
Yes. Absolutely, our immigrant neighbors who pay taxes, who make the city run, who throughout the pandemic took care of our children, delivered our food. They don't have access to a safety net. That's immoral. So I'm fighting for also, last year we had historic funding for the Excluded Workers Fund. So it's something I'm fighting for to be replenished again this year. We need massive investments, and I'm against mayoral control of schools. That's a key policy issue. That a lot of people are like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, tell us what that means, really. What's the struggle there?
Yeah, so mayoral control of schools was a law that Bloomberg put into action after 9/11 that took away the ability of many parents to exercise civic power because they could run for like their school boards. There's an argument that the school board system was inefficient because there was corruption. Of course, there's a lot of corruption, but also the most efficient part of the systems were the most neglected part of the systems. And there were parts that were neglected, like in Brownsville, that had community control experiments, meaning that they engaged in curriculum that reflected the values of the communities. It was this Black liberation, Black Panther-inspired community control movement, and it flourished.
Ocean Hill, Brownsville,
and
back
then,
in the day.
Then here comes Mayor Bloomberg, 2001,
right.
tells the state, hey, state, we're going to ask for a temporary authorization for the city to run, and the mayor specifically to run the schools. And that's what mayoral control is. Under mayoral control, we saw a massive expansion of charter schools, and the inequity that the charter school systems have in our system are a function of mayoral control.
Speak a little about the demographics, the enormous change in demographics of the region.
40%
40% Hispanic, Well, tell us a little about that diversity in just a minute or so that we have here. I know
Yeah.
we're going to do another show because there's a lot to
Yes.
talk about.
Yes.
You were in the forefront of helping Puerto Rico and disaster relief and so on.
Yeah.
So you're particularly trying to be aware of the enormous diversity of the community, and yet the changing demographics also.
Yeah, I mean, I organize with the multiracial coalition model, and I think there's something to say about solidarity across the district. There is an increase now of Latino, Latina, Latinx folk in the district. Voting wise, very strong communities of Co-op City, Throgs Neck, Pelham Bay. We can create a multiracial coalition that also fights for values like community control, but community empowerment in the areas that we discussed. So I'm excited to bring that coalition and to form it and just organize in ways that reflect the values of what we're trying to accomplish.
I'm excited about this too, very, very much. And I hear Reverend Barber in you. I hear a lot of people and really wish you very much very well on your campaign, and good luck. And I look forward to this next show that we're going to do with Alex Vitale in May.
Yes, and thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Yes,
Jonathan
everyone
Soto.
could visit at www.soto4ny.com, www.soto4ny.com, and also follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Soto4, the number 4NY. And thank you so much for
Thank
the
you so
opportunity
much.
to be here.
We will be following you. Thank you so very, very
Awesome.
much. Our second guest today is the People's Private Investigator, Manuel Gomez. Manny is a former NYPD police officer, an Army intelligence officer, Desert Storm veteran, and the founder and CEO of Black Ops Private Investigators. He was featured in the award-winning film Crime Plus Punishment, which chronicles the real lives and struggles of a group of Black and Latino whistleblower cops and the young minorities they are pressured to arrest and subpoena in New York City. He's taken on and won numerous cases for those abused and falsely accused as guilty by our criminal justice system. We're also honored to have Gloria Ortiz on the show. Gloria is the mother of Lance Corporal Ronald Valentine, who was stationed at Camp Hansen, Okinawa, Japan, and found murdered there almost 3.5 years ago. Gloria feels that the military has not done justice to her son and is seeking to uncover the real reasons behind the murder. Manny is taking on her case, which may be just the tip of the iceberg to other murders of our servicemen and cover-ups by our military authorities. So, Manny and Gloria, thank you so very, very much.
Thank you.
For
Thank
being
you.
here on this, to discuss this incredible issue and this case at your,
Thank you
your
for
son.
having
And
me.
I want to give you the time, and I want our audience to understand what happened here in this specific case. But Manny, it seems like this is just maybe one of a number of cases of
Yes.
that's
Yes.
happened. So we haven't heard much about that in the news, have we?
Well, the problem is that the case of Gloria Ortiz's son, Lance Corporal Marine Ronald Valentin, was the tip of the iceberg. She came to me roughly about 2 months ago and telling me about her son was killed about 3 years ago in the Marines, and they've labeled the case as undetermined death. Now,
These are papers that you got.
Yes.
We'll get into
Yes.
the
Yeah.
specifics, but
Yes.
yeah.
So what
she
happened?
came to you and told you this is what
Yes.
the military had told her.
And so when she spoke to me about this case, I was so shocked and appalled that it was a Marine.
So you're a military man.
Well, I'm,
You were
I'm an Army. I'm a retired Army intelligence officer from the 18th Airborne. So I took this personal because it's one of the soldiers, and no matter what branch of service we're in, we're all brothers. So the problem on this case is that her son's death I found highly disturbing when I started to look into it. But then what I even found more disturbing is because of Miss Ortiz, now there's 8 other mothers whose sons and daughters have been killed in the military. And what I've uncovered now is there is a massive cover-up where they don't label the case as murders. They label the cases as death undetermined.
Undetermined. And so how did these other 8, you say other 8 women have gotten in touch with you, or how did you know about this?
Myself and Gloria, Gloria did a GoFundMe and then helped to revamp it, and then all of a sudden we sent it out, and I sent it out to everyone that I knew, because the case that she has goes from Japan, Okinawa, to California, to Florida, to multiple states, because these people were on the base with her son have now been transferred throughout the United States.
Wow.
And on top of that, you know, when she did the GoFundMe and put it out there to hundreds of thousands of people, all these mothers started reaching out to Gloria.
Correct.
And so, but you know, I just want to say that what you're about to hear is one of the most disturbing cases that I've ever done. What you're about to hear is this case here is shocking because it involves the Army, involves the Marines, involves the Navy. So I don't want to waste no further time. I want Gloria to tell you the story.
Tell us, Gloria.
Well, let me start by saying about my son.
Yes.
You know, he was a patriot. He was he loved America as much as he loved his family. He was hard. You know, he was sweet. He was respectful. He was a hardworking young man, and he always wanted to join the military. He always wanted to join the Marine. He always wanted to have a better life, a better future for himself and for his family as well. You know, and also when he joined, I'm sorry.
How old was he when he joined?
He was only 21. He was only 21. He was in his prime. He was only 21.
Yeah.
I mean, he never would have thought that this would have happened to him, you know. And what bothers me, and I know bothers my family too, is that he didn't die at war. You know, he didn't die at war. He didn't die serving his country. He died on a Marine base, you know, where he should have been the safest with the other Marines.
Yeah.
You know, protected, you know, by them. Because there's a saying that says, you know, never leave a brother behind. That's what they say. But what happened there, you know? And go ahead, I'm sorry.
No. So he's stationed now in Okinawa.
He was.
So you're putting the pieces together. What do you think happened? What do you think happened?
They hit him. He got hit in the back of the head, and they found him. They threw him on a ditch.
Now, how do
concrete
you know?
ditch.
How did you find out about all this for our audience to understand?
How did I find out?
Yeah,
So he was missing. It was Labor Day weekend. He was missing August 31st. They called me September 5th
They called. Okay.
to find out if he was with me at my house, and I said
see.
no. Then the next day, they found him on a ditch, dead, in Okinawa, Japan.
Okay. And so there was no explanation.
No.
So, and you didn't buy. I mean, you wanted to find out more, and there
yeah.
should be some sort of investigation. So,
Correct.
did you ask the military for?
Correct. I asked.
What did they say?
I asked them what happened. I asked them why they took so long to contact me. They said that they didn't find out until the 5th that my son was missing, because they had to return back to work. He was a postal, so he worked at the post office.
Right.
And so they called me then, and then they asked me for a picture to be able to find him. When in a Marine base, they should have a picture updated of him to be able to find him. Then the next day they came to my door, and then all the excuses started coming in.
Such as?
Saying that my son was drunk, because it was true. They said he was drinking he was at a gathering together with all the privates
Did
and
they
a
show
sergeant.
you any evidence for that?
No.
No, they said he was
No,
at a barbecue drinking.
Yeah, he was at a get together. Yeah, drinking.
And he
With
wasn't.
the other soldiers.
But he wasn't. We know the Marines.
We had the autopsy report, and the autopsy report proved that he wasn't drinking.
Wow.
So his toxicology report shows
Came out
that
negative.
he was completely
Completely
clean.
clean.
And they
You know,
told you.
And they told
The opposite.
and yeah, they told me that they told me that he was drinking. And then the toxicology report came back and it came out negative. Then they put a $5,000 reward so somebody could speak anonymously. Nobody's going to speak for $5,000, you know. And then on top of it, at the airport, they gave me the wrong body. They gave me the wrong body. They gave me a coffin, a wood coffin that looked like they made it at Home Depot.
So they shipped the body.
They stripped the body.
To you.
But they gave her the wrong
To
one.
the
They gave
airport,
the wrong-
but they gave me the wrong one. They did the
Your
ceremony.
son was not
not in there.
in there.
So they did a ceremony
Ceremony.
with her in the airport
At the airport.
for the
And-
wrong body.
For the wrong body.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't that she was arguing about this coffin looked so cheap and made from Home Depot, because the wood was pathetic.
Right, they were trying to-
Okay, I mean, it looked like something
It looked-
a kid made. All right, and so now she goes, "This is how you bring back our Marines." So then she has to now turn around and pay for another autopsy because they wouldn't let her verify the contents of the second coffin they sent her, saying this is now your son.
Right.
So
Because-
she had to pay another like $50,000 to do that. It's
They-
insanity, this case.
They gave
Wow.
me, yeah, because when as we were leaving the airport, that's when they noticed they gave me the wrong body when they did the whole ceremony and everything for the wrong person, you know. And then when I got the right body, that's what I did. I had to pay to resume him to make sure it was my son because they were also very persistent, and me not to have an open casket neither. They said my son was severely decomposed.
Well, it sounds very suspicious.
Exactly.
Obviously,
So any mother would be worried and
Sure.
would be concerned and say, "Wait a minute, is that even my son?"
Yeah.
You know, and this is why I came to private investigator Manuel.
And with the second autopsy now,
And I did a second autopsy,
was that the one that definitively said it
and
was your son?
yes,
And that's the one they didn't want her to open.
Yes.
Wow, this goes.
But you see what's
Yeah,
even
tell us.
disturbing is
Yeah,
this
what-
this
there's so many
her
things
son
disturbing.
was at a party
Right.
in a sergeant's house with other lower enlisted. So
Okay.
this is low-ranking soldiers
Okay.
that should not have been in a party in the sergeant's house.
Exactly.
That's called fraternization, and that violates military protocol.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's one. So that sergeant should have had charges and been punished for that. That's one. Two, her son was found in a ditch, right,
Right.
with the back of his head cracked open. Okay, and then
How deep was the ditch?
this was a concrete ditch. Okay, and
12,
actually we
15
have a
feet.
picture of it. You're gonna see.
We're gonna-
All right, and it's a concrete ditch that her son was found in, and now. Not only was he found in the ditch, but he was buried. So now my question is this,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
How is it that it's undetermined death when we already know, one, he was hit in the back of the head.
Correct.
Two, he was thrown in a concrete ditch.
Thrown.
Three,
You use the
Thrown.
Thrown,
So
yes.
not
Concrete.
fallen.
No.
Yeah.
He didn't.
and then covered up with dirt. So tonight, so my question to the military is, well, one, did he hit himself in the back of the head? Two, did he throw himself in a ditch?
How
And
deep
three,
was the ditch again?
And did he bury himself?
Yeah, that's.
And then when you ask them that, they're like, you get the crickets. It's been 3 years,
Yeah.
and you know that this was a complete murder. All the evidence shows this was a murder.
And a
And
cover-up.
But the
still labeling
military,
undetermined.
and a cover-up, because the military won't declare it as a murder for the reason that it would affect their recruiting. Who wants to join the Marines when your Marines are being killed by
That's so
Marines? Her son was killed on a Marine base. The cameras were not
not
working.
working.
Okay? Not one camera, but about
For me, about all of them, because there was no footage of my son nowhere in the base.
Now listen to that. This is a military
That's what they told me.
installation in Japan.
Right.
How is it the cameras are not working? Security should be at the maximum.
Right.
Second, then I said to myself, well, Gloria, this sounds suspicious.
Yeah,
So then
yeah.
I find out after looking into a case, 3 more murders happened on that base. And then I found out that the same pattern.
Within what? A couple years? Of
No,
each
we
other?
had had one about within about 9 months, and then we have today. We just had 3 more soldiers die today in the Navy, and then these other mothers we have.
in Japan. At this base?
No, and
Well,
Japan was four murders on this
4
base.
on this base,
Yes,
Camp
even
Hampton.
after her son died, people
And
are still
before.
being killed on the base
within the last.
within the
And
last 3
before.
years.
Yeah.
All right,
4
4 more murders.
in this base.
Yes, but then they
Wow.
don't classify it as murder because they put it as death undetermined. So then when we
accident.
went on GoFundMe and we started putting out the facts of the case, all these mothers started reaching out to Gloria.
Tell us, our audience, GoFundMe is a...
She's going to tell you. What's the GoFundMe?
The GoFund is to continue the investigation for my son.
I see.
Because since they are not able, it's been 3
They
years.
refuse.
Yeah, it's been 3 years.
They want it finished, goodbye, and...
They still have
We're
it
sorry, and
undetermined.
that's it.
They're still
So
undetermined. They're still working.
You have taken on
So,
the expense
This is why.
of trying to really find out what happened,
Well,
which
I
I
mean,
think
it's
any
expensive.
mother would.
It's expensive because
It
now her
is.
case goes from
Because he
Japan
has to go to Japan as
and
well.
throughout all the other states.
Wow.
And then now when she did this, I find out from all these other mothers
Right,
who were
right.
talking with Gloria that this is happening to their children.
their children.
Who were also killed. And I'm talking about one of them is a Navy SEAL.
You were telling me in California and
Yes.
in
Marine.
Germany.
Yes, I have a case out there that because of Gloria, her name is Maria Cruz,
And all
her
these
son
army
got killed.
bases.
Well, her son is a Marine,
Marine.
too.
Marine too.
Marine
They
as
said
well.
that he committed suicide, but when I look into the case, the day of his death, he bought $150 in groceries.
Right.
He called his mom, said, "I miss you." They found his body hanging with him on his knees on the floor with his fingernails cut to the bone and all his fingertips scraped clean.
Wow.
Now, if you're going to kill yourself and commit suicide, why would you buy groceries for the week? Why would you cut your nails to the
Yeah,
bone?
right.
And then he had multiple bruises on his chest. And you see the similarity, the reason why I'm bringing up that case,
Right.
in Gloria's case, her son had bruises too. All right? And not only that,
Besides the cracked
besides that,
skull.
there's no way her son could have cracked
But-
him in the back of the head. No way.
The ditch was 12 to 15 feet deep.
Yeah.
And it was concrete. Wouldn't you think that he would have broke more bones
More-
and
that
all
was
hit
it.
yeah. So
Okay.
it was just here.
But what else?
That was it.
That was it?
That
No
was
other...
it. No. But the bruises, that was it. He died of blunt force trauma.
They-
12 to 15
12 to 15.
feet.
And in the
That's
picture, if you see it,
quite a fall.
he didn't have no business in that area.
Now, in that area, there's cameras, and still the cameras weren't
No,
working.
No, wait now. No business in that area. This
Where they
was-
found
how
it, I'm sorry.
how far was this from?
From where he was
This
at,
is within the base from the.
he
the
was in
so-called
base.
Party?
He was
Yeah.
in base, and from the place, the apartment that he was at,
Yeah.
with the other privates and the
Right, right.
sergeant, he was 200 feet away from there.
I see.
But he was
that
in a spot that there was no reason for him to be there.
Exactly.
Right.
You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And see, the thing is, the base cameras on this section would have showed where he was going or anything.
Right.
Was nothing is working. So I says, how is this the problem? Then I realized, because of Gloria, that there's a systemic pattern in all these 9 mother cases. They put death undetermined.
Undetermined.
We know it's a murder for a fact, and they don't acknowledge it being a murder because the military is more worried about its reputation than bringing justice going after these killers.
Well,
And
we're,
now-
we're pussyfooting around a little bit. I mean, but who would have murdered him but other...
Marines.
Marines,
Yeah,
exactly.
this was on a
Of course.
Marine base with all Marines.
And so what do you think possibly the motive could be, if that's the case? Was it
Honestly, I don't.
racial or...
I don't know.
Ethnic?
I don't know if there was jealousy or I don't know what could have, because he wasn't a troublemaker. So,
wa-
and he wasn't drinking.
And
I
how
don't
long
know.
had he been...
I don't know if it was
let's
because
say-
he might have. He might have seen something he didn't, that he was supposed to see. I don't.
Right,
I
you
don't
never-
know.
But
you
he'd
know.
been in the base for how long?
He was
before
only
this?
there for 2 months.
2 months and this
2
happened
months.
to
That
him.
was his first assignment. He was 2
So
months.
this is quite
But-
a...
And I was talking to him,
Right.
texting him
Right.
the day before.
Yes. And here it was
And
very
he-
close to
Yeah,
him. And
he
it's-
was close to me,
And the situation is this, right?
Wow.
This base has a history of Marines attacking Marines, Marines fighting all the time, hurting each other. It's a history. When
Now-
I spoke to the Stars and Stripe reporter, he was telling me this. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
They have a history of the alcoholism and then the sex parties and just of the physical abuse, attacking one another. And you
So, but Manny, okay,
Yeah.
now you are a veteran. You've
Yeah.
been through it.
I'm disgusted over this case.
I understand, but in your tours, did
Yeah.
you observe something like this? I mean,
Racism,
there's
yes,
war,
I have.
I mean, there's wars and conflicts and there's
Yes.
I have.
high tensions, but this is something.
But you see, you know what the problem is? And I'll tell you what it is, right? We have all these Marines and soldiers, not just Marines, Army, Navy. We're having all these deaths in our military because we trained to fight, we trained to kill the enemy, okay? The one thing they're not teaching is the morality. So even though you're trained to kill, you have to be taught the morality of when not to kill and when to turn it off, when not to use what you've learned. So the problem is you have these Marines on this one base, Okinawa, that they're killing themselves and beating themselves on a regular basis.
So are you saying they're in such a mode of thinking that these are people that have been
Yes.
so trained to
And programmed.
kill and
Yes.
programmed that when some flare-up occurs, they don't know how to deal with the conflict and they take it out violently on each other? I mean,
And they push it
or
to the
ca-
max.
push
They'll
to
use
the
the
max.
techniques taught that we're not
Wow.
supposed to
That you're not
use.
supposed to
And
do.
this is why I said we need to be teaching moralities as well as the combat skill, but teach the morality and how to help people. Because you know what? I'm a soldier, I'm a combat veteran in the storm in Afghanistan. I've served multiple tours.
Right.
One thing I know, it's easy to pull the trigger.
Right.
It's hard to save life. And that's what we need to teach, the values of saving life as well as taking, but we need to teach that, and that's
Well, with
left
all
out
due
of the
respect,
military.
that's with the enemy.
Yeah.
But we're talking about our
But-
troops. I mean, we
Exactly.
had
They're
that.
brothers.
The
They're supposed
brother,
to
we
be
had
brothers.
that in Vietnam. Of course, it was the fracking. That was a crazy war where soldiers were killing their superiors because who were leading them into battle because they knew it was suicidal. But I mean, this is something quite different. It's unusual, but
Oh,
yet
yeah.
it's a pattern that is
It is a
becoming more and more
pattern.
apparent.
It is a pattern.
I mean, this mother right here sitting next to me is a hero. She
Sure.
is standing up against a force of an entire military trying to bring justice to her son. And it is an honor and a pleasure to
Yeah.
be sitting next to her
Same here.
and
Thank
being
you.
a privilege to try to bring her son justice. And and I'm gonna die trying. I will not stop until she gets justice and these
I
mothers.
will
Don't
not stop
die.
neither.
No, because you want to know why? Because
You take it personally.
it's this her son is a brother from
Yeah.
another mother.
Yeah, I understand.
And all these
Thank you.
families are my brothers and sisters from other mothers.
Thank you.
And that is why I'm here with her. And she is now leading these moms and getting them together. This is a little pit bull right here. All right?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. It's
You
coming
know?
across.
But the thing I have a problem with is tell them about what NCIS. She had to go to Congress members because they wouldn't even inform her about the case.
No,
What's
they-
NCIS then?
NCIS are the agents that took over the case when they found my son. The CID found my son. The NCIS got involved because it was considered a crime, criminal. So they took over. They're the ones that give me the updates. They're the agents that give me the updates about what's going on with the case. And now, not the Marines, now it's the NCIS.
I see.
But for a little while, they stopped giving me updates. So I had to go to the Congress office
Wow.
because I wasn't
now,
getting
why
updates.
did that not happen?
I
Just some
Don't know. So
people
when
said maybe, okay, enough of that.
I don't know.
Who knows?
I feel, and this is how I truly feel, that they're trying to keep my son's case to get cold. So they could
Yeah.
put it away on a shelf, and I already
Right.
told them that.
You're gonna go away, they
And
think,
go
yeah.
away into, like we spoke before, into something new comes up. It doesn't work like that.
Right.
I'm still fighting for my son. Regardless, I don't care how long it takes
I
me.
understand.
I said it. I don't care because I know my son was murdered. And I know it was by one of them, and I know one of them knows something.
I mean, this is
You
a
know,
guaranteed murder.
And the NCIS,
Guaranteed, 100%.
they finally got in hold of me every month. Once a month they call me because the Congress got involved. The Congress got involved because they wanted to know, they want to know what's going on, and they're like, why you're not updating her? So now they updated, but every update I get is the same thing. We're working on the case. The case is still open. We're working on leads. We're working on this. I hear the same thing for the past 3 years. That's why I'm tired of it. That's why I called private investigator Manuel Gomez so he could help us get justice to me and my family. And I'm helping him too with the other families, the other mothers whose
We're
kids
gonna
got
have
killed.
other shows
You know,
about that
and
too, yeah.
it's a pattern. Like he was saying, it's a pattern.
Right.
And you know,
know,
she's identified a national problem. Take
I'm
that
sorry, it
back.
gets me
An
angry.
international problem. She identified an international problem because these deaths are happening all around the world. Germany, Okinawa, Norfolk,
Right.
Virginia,
Well-
Texas, Fort Bragg. We just had a guy now. A kid was left in a room for 5 days, hit his head.
Army.
Army, and I'm even just as pissed off because no accountability. They
Well,
left him dead in a room and nobody checked to
5
go see
days.
where he
And-
was
and
for
also-
5 days.
And also the rape incidences as well. That was
Oh,
we
the
didn't
rape
hear
incidents
about.
are
We
crazy.
didn't hear
I
about that
heard
for
that
years
too.
now. That's also surfaced, and there's a lot going on there that we didn't know about. And
Exactly.
so this is something that does people. What would you say? Look at that camera. What would you say to the higher ups, the people who know really what happened there? What would you like to say as a mother?
You really want to the people that know what happened, to the higher ups, just say the truth. Just be honest. Just say the truth. Come clean. Stop covering up my son's death as undetermined when you know he was murdered. Take accountability for what you did, because I know that this higher up involved in this. I know for a fact. There's no way that the cameras were going to be off and nobody, and what a coincidence, on that Labor Day weekend. I feel my son was set up. That's how I feel. Oh, on top of it, besides telling the higher ups how I feel, my son wore glasses, which they know. My son wore glasses. He couldn't hardly see without them. And to this day, they still can't find them. Plus, they have my son's cell phone that they still telling me they haven't been able to break in when I know they have.
Did you
Because
hear that?
on
Yeah,
my
yeah,
phone,
yeah.
before it used to show green. So if they're looking and if they're hearing and if they see me, look at me really good, because I'm not going to stop and I'm coming for whoever did this to my son.
Amen.
And that's that. Come for me. I don't care if he's Marine, Army, whatever. I don't care. My texts used to show green from him, like he didn't have no service. A year after, or a couple of months after that, he shows now they're red because he had an iPhone like me. They were trying to tell me that there was probably a glitch because they had his phone on a machine. You're going to tell me that being in the military, no disrespect,
Yep.
you have the best technology
Yes.
to break into everything, and you haven't broken into my son's phone. You can't even track where he was at. Who are you lying to? I'm a mom of 5. Because even though he passed away, they killed him because they killed him. He's still my son. And he still had a lot that he wanted to accomplish. And it's not going to stay like that. It's not going to stay. I don't care how long it takes me.
And we're going to get her justice. And you know what? And she
I know
brings
you
up a
are.
very good point.
Yeah.
Her phone had an iPhone 8. iPhone 8, we can go online on YouTube and crack open an iPhone 8 to get the information. There's also a program called Cellbrite, what the investigators use, that download that information. Or I can go to Apple with a subpoena and get that information. The fact that the military can't do this is disturbing. But you know what? It's not only her case.
Yeah.
They did this in my other mother's murder cases as well.
Right.
They're saying they can't access the phones. You and I both know every
Yeah.
21-year-old, 22-year-old holds their phone like this. They don't let it go. They go everywhere with it. How can you not look into that crucial piece of criminal evidence and say you can't access it for 3 years? They
3
never
years.
once submitted a subpoena
years.
for it.
Oh.
Now I got to go to Japan to get this phone back so I can crack open the phone because it's not hard. Her phone is like an iPhone 8 her son had.
You see
That's
this?
good.
I got
Dog
this
tape.
3 years after.
Really?
I just recently got my son's dog tags because I kept insisting.
That's
They
disturbing.
wouldn't even give it.
Another thing I want to say. Can I say it too? I have
Please.
something else to say.
Whatever you
Tell
want
us.
to say.
Change my son's manner of death from undetermined to murder because it was a homicide. He didn't kill himself and he didn't trip. And even the medical examiner said they couldn't say it was a trip because they didn't have enough proof of that. Can you just change it
And
and
he
do
didn't
your
bury
job?
himself.
And he didn't bury himself.
Amen. And that's the problem. He did not bury himself. He did not crack himself in the head. He did not throw himself down a concrete ditch.
He talked to his mother a day before.
You know, I mean, it's
Yeah.
insanity. And then talk to us. And this is, but here's the pattern, Jim. They keep doing this in all these cases. So now, because of Gloria, my hero, okay, is now got all these mothers together, and we are forming a coalition. And I'm telling you out there, any Congress
We're
members
coming.
and so forth, we're trying to get the support to have a judiciary hearing or congressional hearing into all these deaths.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, again, legally, what are the next steps here? You want to get some sort of hearing on this, or
Well, what I'm doing legally is
what are you doing legally?
what I'm
and-
doing is
and also-
gathering the evidence on the cases
Okay,
to
and-
show that they're all murders, and that so far I've been able to show that.
Right.
Okay, I've been able to show negligence by the military. I've been showing cover-ups of murders, and all these cases show that.
But
with
you have to
beyond a shadow of
file. I
doubt.
mean, you're not a lawyer here, but
No. That's
so-
as an investigator's point.
Investigator, okay,
You know,
I see, yes.
so I'm showing that all the evidence shows that they're murders. The problem is, all these cases have in common is they try to first say, well, maybe the soldier was drinking, or maybe the soldier was doing drugs, and then all these cases I have, that's not the case. Oh, well, maybe the soldier was depressed. You know, like the kid, like I said, that he hung himself in Germany. I said, well, if he hung himself, why did he buy groceries 3-4 hours before the hanging?
Right.
Oh, he was buying groceries for the afterlife? Come on. You know, I mean, not to be funny, but it's the
No,
truth.
I understand.
And I said, then why did he trim his nails to the bone and then scrape his fingertips?
Right.
Exactly.
And then why did he have multiple black and blues? Her son, the same thing. There was no way that the person that killed her son wasn't a Marine. And I'm going to tell you why. They knew exactly where to
What they
put his
would-
body.
exactly.
In a place that it would not be found, and it was buried. His
5
body was
days.
buried. And that's the problem.
I mean, really buried.
It's the
I mean,
top part of his body was covered in dirt so that
He
it
was
would
decomposed.
accelerate the decomposition.
I see.
For it to decompose. All right. But the problem is that now she got Senator, I'm sorry, remember her name?
Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, I was going
and
to ask.
Congress Lori Trahan.
There's got to be some.
Yes, I have worked. I have been working with Lori Trahan's office, and
Okay, and Warren is.
in the U.S. Elizabeth Warren as
Warren.
well.
So she's now. What stage is that? You've contacted these.
Well, they
offices?
reached out to the military because of her.
Yes.
And NCIS, the
Good.
Criminal Investigative Section,
Yes.
is now been reaching out
Be
to
reaching
Gloria.
out from them
But see, they tell her every month, well, we're looking into it, but there's nothing
We're
found.
working on it.
So they're
There's-
trying to put them off too.
Yeah. That-
Now you met John McCain.
John McCain.
Ma-
Yeah.
Now, he
I
was-
wish he was alive. This
I
wouldn't
know.
be
Well,
going
yeah.
on. I would have been
he
the
was a
first
big-
one in his office.
Well, is there anybody like him today that would really fight for this in the Congress? And
Well, that's what we're searching on. I'm actually
Right.
reaching out to Congress members and senators in New Hampshire, Connecticut. I'm trying to set up an appointment now with Congressman Jim Himes
Okay.
to go out there and see if they can sponsor these hearings. She just wrote, Gloria wrote the senator and the Congress member of Massachusetts to sponsor a hearing. And we just
Yeah.
sent that out 2 days ago.
Yes.
Okay,
And
so
now
that's
we're
on-
having a Zoom conference
maybe
with
Bernie,
all the mothers.
With
Huh?
all
maybe
the-
Sanders.
Well, you know what? I mean, Joe Biden, President Biden has to now get involved because today's morning news, another female soldier dead. Beautiful 22-year-old girl.
I just
and
got
2
some
more
of that.
Navy's soldiers dead on a ship. And this is on U.S. soil.
US
Our
soil.
soldiers are getting killed
This is
on
today.
U.S. bases.
Today.
Where
Today's
is
news.
this? No,
This
where
was
is
up in Norfolk on an aircraft carrier that was being fixed. This is the problem I'm having. All these deaths are happening, and we are having murders being covered up in our military.
Yes.
And we need to take action. And the thing is that the Criminal Investigative Section, they did not want this mother to speak. This is one of the most disturbing patterns I've seen.
Yeah.
They kept telling us, stay quiet, stay
Don't
quiet,
say
don't
much."
say nothing, right?
They
We're
told
gonna.
me-
They
For how
tell
long?
you this.
They kept telling me for the past 3 years, don't speak
Yeah,
too
we're
much about
taking
it.
care of
Yes.
this. We're going to find out.
tell them
I don't
Why?
want you to jeopardize the case,
Jeopardize the case.
scare anybody away,
Wow.
That's
They
all they
just-
kept telling me.
So
And
no
I mean,
more of
being a
that sort
mom,
of stuff,
I was
yeah.
like not trying to say much.
Of course.
A lot of people didn't know until it was a year, and I said, that's it, I can't.
Of course.
Because they're not doing anything. They keep telling me the same thing over and over and over.
No,
She was
putting you off.
losing her right
And
to
I
sue.
would, yeah, exactly.
So they delayed
I
her to the
lost-
point till she lost the right to sue.
Really.
But that's not the only mother. The other 9 is
know.
the
other
same
mothers
thing.
too.
We have 1 minute to go. How can people reach you,
Donate.
be involved in what you're doing?
Look at camera 3.
Tell us in
Okay, they can reach me. You could you could email me. They could email me too, right? You could email me at gortiz213@yahoo.com. You can reach me if it's by phone at 978-424-7066. Or you can reach me through the GoFundMe, which is Justice for Ronnie.
Say it again.
Justice for Ronnie at the
Justice for Ronnie, yeah.
GoFundMe. And yeah, those are
And or get hold of this.
and by private investigator Manuel Gomez. I'm sorry, I apologize.
You can reach me at 347-867-6240.
And if you look up his webpage, 24/7.
24/7.
24/7.
He doesn't. He doesn't sleep.
And
He
any
does not
Marines
sleep.
They'll have information on this
Absolutely.
case. I will
But
take the
but
call.
we've got to sleep, and we've got to go wrap this up. My heart goes out to you. I
Thank you.
wish you so much
Thank you.
that this gets resolved as
I'm
rapidly
praying
as
that it
possible.
does.
We prayed for you.
Thank
you
you.
so very, very much for being here.
Thank you.
Carry on. Be strong.
I
And
will.
thank you so very, very much, both of you, for being
Thank
here
you.
on
Thank
the
you.
show.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank
God
you,
bless.
Jim.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you all for being with us today on The Radical Imagination. We'll see you next week. This is Jim Vrettos. Take care.